came that free fall that went all the way to the Browns at 144. And then, of course, the Browns, who have an obsession with analytics, they're looking at the draft board. They're seeing the gap in their best available players between Shedeur Sanders and everybody else. They put his name on the card. And now the circus comes to town as it relates to having 5 quarterbacks. And we don't know who the starter is going to be. But it does give Shedeur Sanders an opportunity when you look one by one at the contenders and their circumstances, like Deshaun Watson, highly unlikely to play this year. Shedeur Sanders has a chance to start as soon as week 1.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. What else from the draft hits you 9 days later? I'll just give you the floor on whatever else you're keen on, Mike.
Hey, Rich, we don't pick the stories pick us. And this whole prank call thing, it was like the gift that kept on giving. And all these different guys who got prank called, they got prank called before they were officially picked. There were multiple players who got prank called after they'd been selected and told they were traded. Ashton Jenney of the Raiders recently said that happened to him. He was told he'd been traded to the Cowboys. I know of another player who had that same thing happen. Along the way, I heard about a player who once received a phone call from a friend who was messing with him, telling him he'd been traded. This was years ago. Guy's not in the league anymore. He packed up and went to the airport, and he called his agent on the way. And his agent said, "What the hell are you talking about? You haven't been traded." So the lost art of the prank call is now back. And the league's got some work to do by next April, because the gauntlet has been thrown down for anyone out there that wants to go Jerky Boys, Crank Yankers, Bart Simpson, and get these numbers and make these prank calls during the draft next year.
Well, the answer is, Kara Henderson Sneed, a longtime friend of mine. I've known her since my ESPN days, said FaceTime it. That's it. End of story. FaceTime it. Obviously, it might be difficult for a drafted player to hear in his party with, dozens of people around milling about. You might have to somehow put it to your ear, but other than that, you at least get to see who it is and end of the story, because I understand that there is an art of the prank call and everything like that, but it's just at the end of the day, it's just not funny, and it's terrible, and it's something that does need to be addressed. Certainly if, as you pointed out, in one of your posts, how it wound up in the hands of the prank caller, Mike.
Well, and Rich, I got both communications that were sent by the league that really became the heart of this case before we even knew that it was Falcons defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich who had the email somehow open on his iPad as his son somehow happened to walk by while he was visiting his parents and instantly had this lightning bolt idea. I'm going to write the number down and prank call Shedeur Sanders. But this happened not because the Falcons mishandled confidential information that was given to them by the league. After they sent out the memo with 45 names and numbers on it on Wednesday, April 23rd, there was a supplemental communication that went by email with just Shedeur Sanders' updated phone number, and they sent it to the email distribution list that gets the daily transaction report. My best estimate is 2,000 people get that, and Ulbrich got it directly from the league. He got Shedeur Sanders' updated draft day phone number in an email to him from the league. This wasn't the Falcons mishandling confidential information. This was the league literally putting that number on blast to 2,000 people. So once you do that, you're asking for someone to misuse that number.
And the Falcons just said, we'll still take the fine hit instead of saying we didn't give it to him. I mean, that's interesting.
Well, there still was an element of, look, I've heard from many people about the statement the Falcons put out. Mm-hmm. You can come to your own conclusion as to whether or not it's convenient, as to whether or not it's accurate, mm-hmm. as to whether or not it really tells the whole story. But the quickest way to end this is just take the punishment and move on. Because at the end of the day, one of their employees, one of their key employees on the coaching staff mishandled that information, even if it came to him directly from the league. And I think that it was decided the best thing we can do here is just end this and move on.
It appears the nation's capital is about to be awarded an NFL draft, Mike. Looks like that's happening.
I got one last point.
Sure.
Is it possible Aaron Rodgers is wearing a wedding ring as a sociological experiment like Costanza once did?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, I'm serious. This was the lead item on an email from the NFL Network today, because we're just waiting, just like everyone else, to see if there's any advancement in his personal life that will cause him to be closer to saying I do to the Steelers in his professional life. Mike?
And see, for Rodgers, Rich, I think the sociological experiment wouldn't be, let's see if women are more attracted to me while wearing a wedding ring. It would be, can I get the media to talk about it so I can go on McAfee's show at some point in the future and complain about the fact that we're talking about his wedding ring?
When are the Steelers, are you hearing about a drop dead date, Mike, or no? Not at all.
I was told before the draft, and I know that Aaron Rodgers prides himself on no one knowing anything about anything he ever does.
Right.
I was told before the draft by someone in a position to know that Rodgers to the Steelers is happening. It's just a question of when. And it dawned on me last week, Rich, what's coming up on May the 14th? That is the day the schedule gets revealed.
Correct.
I remember last year how Mike North, the VP of Broadcast Planning and Operations, said the Jets owe us one, and they had all those short week primetime games early in the season. If you're Rodgers, don't you just at this point wait until after the schedule is out? Because it's not like the Steelers are going to get fewer primetime games than what they'd otherwise get, but if you drop Rodgers officially onto the Steelers, there's a chance they're going to get more, especially early in the season.
Well, especially when you look at their schedule, Mike, they stroll through the NFC North and the AFC East, both of Rodgers' previous stomping grounds. And speaking of grounds stomping, the road games include a visit to the Jets and famously a spot where he once put on a championship belt with his hands to say that he owned the team and the Bears. There are many, and the Packers are on their list as well, along with the rest of the AFC North. I mean, good Lord, are these games that with the Bills as well, Seahawks? This would be a knockdown dragout for a lot of the league's television partners to say we want the Steelers.
And if it all falls through, it's Mason Rudolph. Have fun with that.
Dude.
Primetime network partners, including NBC, my employer. So I assume they're operating under the assumption that Rodgers is going to join the Steelers. But we know with Rodgers, nothing is official until he goes on McAfee's show and tells us it's official. I was told it's happening. Until it happens, who knows what Rodgers is going to do. But at this point, when you look at what the Steelers did or didn't do in the draft, what Art Rooney said during the draft, I think that was the clearest indication yet, the way he characterized, I believe Aaron wants to come here. They didn't draft anybody who's going to compete to play quarterback this year in taking Will Howard. They had multiple shots at Shedeur Sanders. I think the seat is being kept warm for Aaron Rodgers, and they expect him to show up, and there would probably be much content.
Chào các bạn. Chào mừng các bạn đã đến với kênh YouTube của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ hướng dẫn các